Welcome to the earthvox podcast. The earthvox podcast. earthvox podcast.
Well, we're running a little bit late this morning because I just couldn't stop myself. So many things to research, so many things to dig into. And then I'm also getting used to my Rumble stream exclusives. I'm not exclusively streaming on Rumble, but I am working a little extra, including some extra elements for the Rumble stream because, well, so far Rumble seems to be the good guys. But I think we made some major mistakes allowing Google and other big search engines to manipulate their search results. And of course, this stems from all of the things that we talk about on the show all the time. I'll try not to repeat myself too often. But until things change, it's something that we have to be focused on. It's extremely harmful that we have massive corporations that we allow to manipulate information, manipulate politicians with campaign donations. And that's how we end up with this kind of thing. I'm researching and I'm trying to find reliable information, and it just doesn't happen. It's not available. Primarily because we've allowed our legislators to enable these massive tech companies to do, really whatever they wish. So as I'm looking into all of these things that I want to talk about today, of course, we'll talk about Iran. But Iran, what's going on in Iran today, this morning, late last night? It's all going to be obscured by the fog of war. And all of the involved parties are going to be vying for your attention. Because knowledge is power. And it's one of the things that Iran and sort of the Islamic Caliphate was really good at, manipulating information. And as soon as we established that the dissemination of information could be purchased and influenced, our ability to trust Google search results was extremely affected. So this was one of the things that I was digging into first thing this morning. What happened with the litigation? We know there was litigation. We know there was antitrust lawsuits. This is what Grok had to say regarding the U.S. Department of Justice versus Google, starting in 2020 and ongoing. This landmark antitrust lawsuit accused Google of unlawfully maintaining a monopoly in general search services and search text advertising through exclusive distribution agreements. The key testimonies were from Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, who testified that Google's deals locked out competitors like Bing, limiting its market share to 5 to 6% overall, and only 1% on mobile. Saying, of course, that it stifled innovation and enabled Google to degrade result quality without repercussions. This is one of the reasons that corporations behave in this way, with all of this anti competitive behavior and efforts to steal intellectual property, because less competition means less effort. We don't have to work so hard to maintain our consumer base, because where else are they going to go? Google executives, including CEO Sundar Pichai, defended the payments as pro-competitive, arguing they funded partner innovation because they were paying mobile carriers like Apple to put Google on all of the devices, on all the iPhones, on all the Android phones, to increase their market share. The economist Kevin Murphy, Google's expert, claimed Google's dominance promotes competition by setting high standards, and revealed Google shares 30%, 36% of Safari ad revenue. With Apple, Safari, of course, is the browser that the default browser on Apple equipment, computers and iPhones, etc. Now, DOJ experts like economist Michael Winston argued the deals caused market foreclosure, supra competitive ad prices. That's supra, which, according to Ben Stiller in the movie Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny, is like a whole other level above super. That's right. And reduced incentives for rivals to invest. I mean, I will point to this 5 to 6% market share for Microsoft Bing, and that's overall 1% on mobile. That's nothing. That's basically no competition. Now, the outcomes, this is where it gets really, I mean, I don't know, I guess, disgusting. August 2024, U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta ruled Google violated Section 2 of the Sherman Act, declaring it a monopolist with 90% U.S. search market share. Then in September 2025, how pathetic is that? The ruling came down in August of 24, and the remedies phase began September 25. Banned exclusive contracts for Google Search, Chrome Assistant, and Gemini app. Required sharing portions of search index and user interaction data with qualified rivals. Mandated syndication of search text ads. Rejected DOJ proposals for divesting Chrome or Android. Imposing choice screens or banning all default payments. But get this, the remedies are the only last for 10 years. And they haven't even, I mean, it's all still ongoing. Google appealed early in 2026, arguing the ruling ignores market evolution. I mean, these companies just argue, no, it's not fair. Even if it's, even if their own practices are unfair. It's projection. It's all of the normal human things that we see occurring in politics, occurring in the corporate world, occurring in the judicial realm. Critics argue remedies are too weak, failing to dismantle Google's scale advantages or address self-referencing, for example, prioritizing its own services, allowing continued dominance and potential quality degradation. But it's not the quality that bothers me. It's the obvious bias in the results. It's obvious bias. in the results. There were some interesting things here at the end of this explanation. There's a whole section on what happened in the EU because the same things are going on with the EU. Microsoft Bing had fewer major cases, but accused of political bias in studies. No significant U.S. litigation outcomes against Microsoft Bing, of course, because they have, 6% of the market share. Research studies on search engine manipulation effects show biased rankings can shift opinions by 20 to 80% on topics like elections, going often undetected. A 2019 Wall Street Journal analysis claimed Google manually adjusts results to combat misinformation, raising bias concerns. We should have never allowed this to happen. And this was raised in my mind because I was trying to find info about this alleged executive order that Trump is attempting to issue or may issue. Of course, this is all flying kind of under the radar because of what's going on with Iran. But let me just show you what I'm talking about here with these Google search results. First, in the top stories section of the search results. What are our sources? PBS, The Washington Post, the Center for American Progress, and League of Women Voters of California. What do you think the political alignment is on all of those sources? Massively leftist, eh? Well, you'd be right. So I click the news tab to see, maybe something, could we have something that maybe isn't like blatantly biased to the left? My options are as follows: The Washington Post, PBS again, MS Now, formerly MSNBC, Democracy Docket, with the headline, Anti-Voting Activists Coordinating with White House on Blatantly Illegal Draft Emergency Order to Take Control of Elections. Does that sound unbiased? Oh, here we go. Fox News. Is that moderate, unbiased option? I can't believe that Fox News is in these Google results at all. Then we have The Guardian, CBS News, The Hill, and then we're back to PBS. Then we have the League of Women Voters of California. Then we have Vote Writers, which is nothing. It's nonsense. There's not even an article there. If you're watching the video, which is streaming live and also available after the stream on Rumble and X and Twitch and YouTube, if you so desire. So through this litigation against Google and basically against, I remember the testimony. The Google CEO went before Congress or some oversight committee and said, no, we're not. We promise we're not manipulating the search results. When we know that Google will place a search result higher on the page if the owner of the website or product or whatever people are searching for agrees to pay some ad revenue. Once they established this infrastructure, the search engine operators realized they can go ahead and start including the search results that agree with their own political bias. No, we don't want results from the Gateway Pundit. We don't want results from Breitbart. We don't want results from the post-millennial. Because those don't agree with our political sensibilities. Instead, we want the results from the people that pay and the results from the sources that agree with our political biases. Now, which one, in your opinion, do you think holds more sway over the actions of the developers at Google and Microsoft? And where is the moderate? Where's the rise of the moderate search engine? The one that says, we're just going to provide search results based on the websites that have received the highest traffic. Based on the websites that our algorithm deems to be the most relevant to the search terms the consumer has plugged into the search engine. Well, they don't exist for all of the reasons that Google and Microsoft and Apple and Android have all faced litigation over. Because anti-competition. Like why companies like Parler died almost as fast as they were conceived. Because in my opinion, I mean, as far as I know, it's well known that these massive corporations engage in anti-competitive behavior, and then, even when it makes it to court, judges come back with flaccid rulings that enable companies to continue engaging in this anti-competitive behavior. And I've said it before. I don't remember what I've said before. Oh yes. Excuse me. I was pulling up a link and thinking about my segue. It's been reported that companies like Facebook and Amazon and even Sears will steal intellectual property from the smaller businesses that sell on their marketplaces. They'll steal the design, manufacture it in China for pennies on the dollar compared to what it costs the small business to manufacture their product, and then they will put it right alongside in the search results. And Sears was accused of putting their products right next to the proprietary designs of these small business owners, these inventors, because they can do it cheaper, they can drive away the competition, and ultimately add a few more pennies their stock price. I'm not a leftist. I'm not anti-capitalist. But there's a major problem with the way corporations are doing business in the United States and probably across the world that I think the government should largely be responsible for. I mean, I think it's a little bit slimy that companies are allowed to sell products at a lower price to a major company that can buy 1,000,000 units versus a smaller company that can only buy 1,000 units. Would it be right for the government to intervene and say, no, 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 you have to charge the same price to the big guy that you charge to the little guy? I don't know. I'm not a fan of that. Wouldn't it be a wonderful world if we could just have people of integrity making the big decisions that massively impact our lives, as opposed to the Wild West, the kind of libertarian way of thinking? that says, live and let live, let people do what they want. I generally agree until you see the effects. When you see a Walmart come into a small town and drive all of the small mom and pop shops out of business because they can't compete with the way Walmart does business. I don't know. I can't take a hard position because on one hand, congratulations to Walmart for developing such an efficient business model. On the other hand, protest Walmart out of business because they drive down wages. But I was doing this deep dive into this executive order that Trump made on voter ID. And of course, I realized quickly that the best place to find the information was, when I say the best place to find the information, I mean a broad cornucopia of opinions and stories and perspectives on the information that is being released about this Trump voter ID executive order. We've been talking a lot about the SAVE Act. And I think a lot of us are very frustrated that the major actions of the administration have been focused on foreign policy. What's going on in the Middle East? What's going on with China? Operations in Venezuela, removing dictators. When, in my opinion, our bigger problems are at home with the dictators that have been illegitimately elected, in my opinion, to local and federal offices across the country. We have legislation that's passed the House, the SAVE Act or the Save America Act, mandating voter ID, proof of citizenship. And through my independent research, it does, in fact, seem that the SAVE Act would make voting quite a bit more difficult. Is that a bad thing? Should it be easier for people that have no real interest in the facts to cast their vote in favor of whichever candidate is celebrated by their union or by the news station that they like to frequent or by the propaganda that's spread across social media? I mean, I think the SAVE Act would change everything. Would it not? Because suddenly politicians wouldn't be for sale. Politicians would be beholden to their voters because there would be an understanding. The corporations can't buy elections for candidates anymore. Foreign countries can't steal elections using a massive influx of immigrants to vote for blue candidates who would push leftist policies that would slowly turn the country into a vassal state of China. I don't think there would be a situation like we see in Congress where you have a Republican controlled Congress, a barely yet still Republican controlled Senate, a Republican controlled executive, a Republican controlled judiciary, where 90% of Republicans, I mean, this is based on polls. I know we don't really like polls. 90% of Republicans support the SAVE Act. and voter ID and proof of citizenship before voting. 80% of all Americans, according to this poll, Democrats and Republicans, support voter ID or some kind of citizenship verification before voting. Yet John Thune, Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, other rhinos in the Senate refused to even hold a vote on the bill. So Trump is forced to at least consider. My prediction is he will make the executive order, mandate voter ID and proof of citizenship before voting in the 2026 midterms. What other choice does he have? I don't like ruling by executive order, and my main concern is that this executive order will come and go. Trump issuing an executive order would take all the pressure off of Republicans in Congress and in the Senate. Suddenly, oh, good. Trump made an executive order. We've got our proof of citizenship and voter ID for federal elections coming now. We don't have to worry about it. Maybe that's enough. Except what do you think is going to happen in the courts? I mean, it was a year from the judge's ruling on Google and their search engine biases before any remedies even began to be implemented. I mean, what are we supposed to do? It's like insider trading. I mean, these were the things that Trump was talking about at his State of the Union address. We have to do these things. We have to stop insider trading by members of Congress. Because it allows them to legislate in ways that will enrich them personally. I mean, there are supposed to be measures in place to prevent this from happening. But they're all carefully loopholed. If we pass the SAVE Act, if we pursue election integrity, we have a chance to stop this from happening. I mean, it will immediately disincentivize companies from investing in politicians. And how can you think that any of this is left to chance? I mean, how does the company that you work for treat you like you matter? Like your opinions matter, like your rights matter? Do you think that just stops at you? No, the corporate world is filth. It's about profits and the bottom line and extracting as much wealth and value from their customers, from their employees, from their country as possible. So, what are they going to leave to chance? That the peasants are going to elect a politician that could be unfriendly to the goals of their corporation? I mean, why do you think oil and coal are still the primary sources of energy in the United States and across the world? It's because they're the best? Maybe. Or is it because coil and coil coal and oil lobbies control the majority of the politicians, Donald Trump included. He loves beautiful coal and oil. He hates windmills. He hates solar farms. That's because they suck. Okay? Well, what about nuke? What about nuclear energy? I mean, I keep hearing that modern nuclear energy is so clean and so safe that it's mind-boggling that we're not using it everywhere. And now we have the AI boom, and we're going to need all of this extra energy. It's a good thing that they've spent decades training you and me to be more energy efficient. We gotta use very little energy, people. We gotta use very little energy because Jeff Bezos needs it for his AI ventures. And Bill Gates and Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. See, all of the elites, they need to keep flying their private jets. They need to build their massive AI data centers and suck up all the resources, all the energy, all the water. And you shouldn't travel. And in fact, here's a massive propaganda campaign on how dangerous it is to fly, how inconvenient it is to fly, what a burden it is to have to fly everywhere. And maybe that's where the real ID comes into play. Not a lot of people going to be on board with the real ID, with the digital identity, when it comes to traveling anywhere, traveling internationally. People will resist, which will contribute to fewer people flying, less energy being used. Maybe it's only a few percentage points, but we know in the corporate world, a few points is incentive enough to make dramatic changes. Unfortunately, none of these things were really discussed at the State of the Union. But I got the highlights here, posted to Rumble by the New York Post. There actually isn't a lot at the beginning. It's a lot of clapping. It was kind of wild, so I need to go back to the beginning. There was so much clapping at the beginning, of the State of the Union. They clapped for so long. I was honestly perplexed. While Trump just stood up there, sort of next to the podium, and it wasn't Trump that did it either. As I understand, it was Mike Johnson that was supposed to begin the speech by welcoming the president. And I don't know actually how long they stood and clapped for the president. Well, some of the members. But it was an uncomfortably long time before Mike Johnson said, "Oh, it's the president of the United States. Go ahead, sir. Begin." Rep. Al Green was ejected from the ceremony because he had a sign that said, black people aren't apes. Something just ridiculous. Because all of these people are narcissists. They're all starving for camera time. Al Green brought a sign that said black people aren't apes because, of course, Donald Trump But the propagandist media, of course, focused in on Barack and Michelle Obama that were depicted as gorillas, chimpanzees. to affirm their theory that Donald Trump is really an obscene racist and should be, I guess, murdered and assassinated, because there's nothing worse, according to the Democrats, than somebody that doesn't celebrate diversity.
Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself, not
I
standing
know. I
up.
don't know why.
You should be
This, of course, we'll watch this little bit, but this is after. No, you know what? I'm gonna play the whole thing in context. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe the intern at the New York Post needs to have a little performance review or something. I'm not saying they should be fired, but why? Let's go back. Why start this moment here? Back it up just a little bit.
Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself, not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Why would they stand up? We know the Democrats are always stubborn a-holes at these things. I mean, again, it's all about getting attention. It's not about doing what's right. But why should they have stood up? And why is that context missing from this video, New York Post? Come on. Here's, I think, the entire thing, but at least the context for why they should have stood up.
So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
I see maybe a couple Democrats standing up. But the simple explanation is only the Republicans. Only the Republicans stood up. And then Ilhan Omar, the Somali rep from Minnesota, was just shouting at Donald Trump, which kind of made him shout back. Oh no, why did I I lost my share button. That never happens. I am so embarrassed. Everything always works perfectly on this show. I don't know if you're just tuning in. And if you are, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button if you would be so kind. We're back on track. Thank you.
Ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you, standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals, enact serious penalties for public officials.
You see Mike Johnson standing up in the back about to regulate because they're just jeering. You can hear the jeering. They're a bunch of sick, disgusting losers. How did they get there? Is the American voter so stupid that they have elected these American-hating politicians to represent them? I don't. Maybe you're shouting, yes. Yes, they are so stupid and uneducated. I don't think the percentage of those voters has any electoral impact. I could be wrong.
Who blocked the removal of criminal aliens, in many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country. They're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself. Let's also ensure that members of Congress cannot corruptly profit from using insider information. They stood up for that. I can't believe it.
Some of them stood up in support of banning insider trading for members of Congress and their families.
I can't believe it. Did Nancy Pelosi stand up if she was here?
Oh,
Doubt it.
yeah, man. Come on.
Pass the Stop Insider Trading Act without delay. We are honored to be joined tonight by a woman who's been through hell, Anya Zarutska. In 2022, she and her beautiful daughter, so beautiful, what a beautiful young woman, Irina, fled war-torn Ukraine to live with relatives near Charlotte, North Carolina. And by the way, what's going on with Charlotte? Last summer, 23-year-old Irina was riding home on the train when a deranged monster who had been arrested over a dozen times and was released through no cash bail stood up and viciously slashed a knife through her neck and body. Mrs. Zarutska, tonight I promise you we will ensure justice for your magnificent daughter, Irina. How do you not stand? How do you not stand? Here with us tonight is a group of winners who just made the entire nation proud. The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team. Come on in.
Oh, the left, the Democrats can stand for the USA hockey team. I guess that's fairly innocuous. But this was really it was an exhibition of the hatred that the Democrats and the left have for this country. And how did they get there? They got there by lying. They got there with the support of the mainstream media, who repeats their lies, propagandizes the American people. They got there with massive corporate donations, enabled by Citizens United. But I think primarily they got there through fraudulent elections, manipulated elections. Perpetuated by illegal aliens, probably not even voting, but registering to vote. Once they're registered to vote and they have an address attached, well, all the corrupt Secretary of State has to do is send them a ballot. Then the ballot harvesters go around, collect the ballots, count the votes, do no signature verification, falsify ballots, print ballots, and install America-hating sycophants that will facilitate the overthrow of the country. And a certain percentage, I think, are also extremely convinced that the Republicans are evil and the Democrats are good, benevolent people that are going to make everything better for us, right? And voter ID, unfortunately, will not correct that. But the bright side is, I think, that's a small percentage of the people that vote. And voter ID will deter those. They will discourage those people from voting. And maybe you think that's a bad thing. I don't. I think making voting a little more inconvenient will deter these really radical people from voting. It will stop the mass mailing out of ballots, because I think that's what's really going on here. It's not brainwashed masses voting for socialists and globalists. It's not immigrants. It's not homeless people. It's creating the pretext for mailing out thousands more ballots than should be mailed out. And creating a paper trail. Creating a paper trail for fake ballots that they can manipulate to look like real ballots. And then they stop observation. They discourage arbitration. Using all of the techniques that we've come to realize as tactics of the left. They'll take away your livelihood. They'll ruin your life. They'll prosecute you. Even if you've done nothing wrong, they'll make you get a lawyer. They'll make you sign on to a plea deal. Then you have people like Tina Peters, who was close enough to the situation to blow the whistle. And she's now sitting in a Colorado prison. The SAVE Act, or the Save America Act, would remedy a lot of these problems, and that's why there is such massive resistance against it in Congress from an issue that has 80% support. Can't even get a vote in the Senate because of how corrupt these people are. And it's the corruption of the election system that has gotten them into these positions of power. All right. Enough about that. I talk about it a lot because I feel like this is what we need to be focused on. Not overthrowing dictators, getting the dictators out of our own government. By any means necessary, by the way. I know the Republicans in charge they're very concerned with following the rules, making sure everything's judicially kosher, making sure nobody's feelings get hurt, no feathers get ruffled, no outrage is spawned. We have to act. We have to act with honor and integrity, according to these Republicans. I don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe we do need to be careful about how we behave when in control of the levers of power. Or maybe we need to just arrest all of these people, set the country straight, and let the Lord sort it out. We're not getting anywhere doing things properly. Properly, of course, according to the Republicans. Just ask yourself what the left would do if Republicans stole the election in 2020 and the left got their power back. I mean, we know what they would do because they're talking about what they're going to do when they get power back in 2026 and 2028. And I don't know if I covered it on the last show. I definitely had a note. They're going out making public statements. These Democrat politicians are telling companies they will have hell to pay for working with Donald Trump once the Democrats get power back again. And I don't know about you, but I think that should be against the law. You shouldn't be able to threaten any entity with legal action for behaving within the confines of the law. And they're saying, if you cooperate with Donald Trump, we're going to ruin you. Deliberately obstructing the president's agenda that we voted for, theoretically. So I wonder how they feel about the war with Iran. There hasn't been any massive outcry against the operation, except maybe from Rachel Maddow. Because this is what the cabal wants, right? It's that theory, that conspiracy theory. The brief explanation: Wesley Clark, a retired U.S. Army general and former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, revealed in a 2007 interview, we've talked about this before, and his book, Winning Modern Wars, that shortly after the 9/11 attacks, he was informed by a senior Pentagon official about a classified memo outlining a plan to overthrow or attack 7 countries in 5 years. The countries listed were Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran, starting with Iraq as the initial target. Clark described this as part of a broader post-9/11 strategy to reshape the Middle East, which he criticized as misguided and focused on the wrong priorities. While Clark's account is based on his direct experience, it's often labeled a conspiracy theory in discussing questions and in discussions questioning U.S. foreign policy motives, though subsequent U.S. military involvements in several of these nations have fueled debates about its doing good about its accuracy. This is about bringing nations under the umbrella of the Rothschild central banking cartel. We're really against cartels, aren't we? And we don't like them. Why don't we like them? Well, because the big cartels never like it when other cartels get going. Almost like this Wall Street corporate structure has permeated every aspect of behavior. From governments, politicians, corporations, cartels. We don't want countries to ditch the petrodollar, so we invade them and blow them up. Take out their leaders. This is what I don't know, would you call it, the opposite of West is East? Would you call it the Eastern Alliance, the BRICS Alliance? That wants to trade in Chinese currency, Indian currency. Taking out Maduro in Venezuela is a direct attack on that alliance. Going into Iran, also a direct attack on that alliance. Maybe it's Wesley Clark's 7 countries in 5 years conspiracy theory. I keep thinking about Tim Pool's prediction. Back in 2024, I think, when it seemed that Trump was going to be elected president again, and we were all kind of scratching our heads going, wow, he overcame. Trump overcame. Remember, it was the greatest comeback in political history. He overcame all of the lawsuits, all of the propaganda, 2 assassination attempts to win the election, to win a second term after losing after allegedly losing to Joe Biden in 2020. Tim Pool hypothesized Trump cut a deal. He cut a deal with the cabal. He cut a deal with the military industrial complex. He didn't go deep into the theory. But he said, I think Trump said, okay, stop trying to kill me and my family. And when I get back into office, I'll give you your regime change wars that you crave so much. And now here we are. We're bombing Iran, a country with a population of 91 million. I mean, maybe a little bit smaller now, eh? So just for perspective, for context, Iran is a little bit smaller than Afghanistan, but with twice the population. 70% of this population in Iran lives in urban centers. Iran has urban centers. And it doesn't seem, as of this morning, that this is going to be a quick in and out operation. And as I go through this information, I want to just stress everyone has an agenda, everyone has a narrative. So you have to take all of this info with a grain of salt. Shanaka Anslam Pereira writes on X, I found this to be particularly interesting. That's why I'm bringing it up. Not because it's irrefutably factual, but an interesting perspective on what went down. He writes, they did not bomb Iran. They waited for Iran's entire leadership to sit down in the same room, and then they bombed Iran. Months of intelligence, thousands of hours of surveillance and signal intercepts. One variable. The moment the supreme leader, the president, and senior military command gathered in a single location at the same time. That moment was 8:15 this morning. It was posted, interestingly, at 4:40 a.m. on February 28th. That moment was 8:15 this morning, daylight. Every previous Israeli strike on Iran came at night. June 2025 launched in darkness. October 2024 after midnight. Iran's entire air defense doctrine is built around the assumption that Israel attacks in the dark. Israel attacked in broad daylight because the target was not infrastructure. The target was a meeting. Reuters confirms. Strikes targeted Khamenei and I had worked out this pronunciation the first time I read through this. Pezeshkian. CNN confirms months of joint U.S.-Israeli planning. Israeli officials confirmed the strike hit the location where Iran's top officials were gathered. Whether Khamenei was moved before the strike or extracted after is the most consequential unknown on the planet right now. If before, someone inside Tehran's inner circle told Jerusalem when and where the meeting would happen. If after, the strikes hit the room and he survived. Both scenarios are catastrophic for the regime. Because Iran's leadership now knows three things. Israel knew where they were meeting. Israel knew when they were meeting. Israel knew who would be in the room. And everything we watched over the past month, the F-22s at Ovda, the tankers at Ben Gurion, Al Udeid emptied to zero, 270 transport flights, all of it was the delivery architecture for one precision strike on one gathering. Every future meeting of Iran's senior leadership now carries one question. Does Israel know about this one too? This is not a military operation. This is the destruction of institutional trust inside a regime. Every general who sits with Khomeini tomorrow will wonder who told Jerusalem about today. Every IRGC commander who receives a meeting summons will calculate whether attendance is duty or a death sentence. Every secure facility in Tehran has been proven insecure. In 2025, Israel killed 30 generals in the opening minutes. That was brute force across dispersed targets. This was a scalpel. One meeting, one moment, months of patience. Iran fired missiles at 6 countries in retaliation. Most intercepted. 1 civilian dead from debris in Abu Dhabi. Saudi Arabia responded by pledging all its capabilities against Iran. The Gulf coalition that did not exist yesterday exists today because Tehran built it by attacking everyone simultaneously. Israel traded one morning of precision strikes for the permanent destruction of Iran's command cohesion. That is not a battle. That is checkmate disguised as a first move. Very, very, very optimistic. It's very optimistic. Of course, we know now that Khomeini has been killed. At least it is being widely reported as such. But it's not over because Iran is still retaliating. We have this headline from Fox News. Gulf states condemn. Close. Lord. Pay no attention. Everything's working perfectly. Gulf states condemn Iranian retaliatory strikes on their territories following U.S.-Israeli operation. Iran launched all of these strikes on American military bases in the surrounding countries. The article reads, Arab nations are sounding off against Iran after the regime launched strikes against U.S. interests in neighboring countries in the region in retaliation for U.S.-Israeli joint strikes against Iran's leaders. The Iranian response targeted all U.S. bases in the Gulf, except for U.S. bases in Oman. The Omani foreign minister had tried to mediate the nuclear talks in Geneva, even flying to Washington, D.C. to meet Vice President J.D. Vance at the White House Friday to try to avert what is quickly turning into a regional war. Fox News' Jennifer Griffin reported that approximately 40 missiles had landed in Israel. Meanwhile, the U.S. military in Iraq intercepted at least 1 missile targeting U.S. sites. Additionally, Iran appeared to hit the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet, but no casualties were reported. As of now, I think we are up to 9 casualties. But here is the latest according to Grok. Grain of salt, it's Grok. I really only used it as a summarizing tool. And I just asked, what are the latest updates with attacks against and coming from Iran? And he responded. It responded. U.S. and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury strikes on March 1st, 2026, killing Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, 48 other leaders, and over 200 civilians, including 165 at a girls' school in Manab. I'm coming back to that. 9 Iranian Navy ships sunk. Are they talking about the little speedboats? Attacks from Iran, retaliatory. Israel, missile strike on Beit Shemesh, killing 8 to 9, injuring 28. Total Israeli deaths 10 to 11. on the United Arab Emirates. Drone missile attacks killed 2 to 3, injured 58. Attacks on Kuwait killed 1, injured 20. Attacks on the U.S., of course, in the region. 3 service members killed, 5 seriously wounded in operations. Attacks on bases in Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain. And in Pakistan, they're protesting at a U.S. consulate, and 9 have been killed there. But it's not over. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great? But of course, we know that's not the plan. And the propagandist media is what was quick to run out and report on this girls' school. David Kite writes on X, turns out it wasn't Israel, as Al Jazeera reported. It wasn't US, as Iran reported. It was a failed launch by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps that fell back to the ground and struck the elementary school. Also, by the by, he adds, the elementary school is attached to an IRGC naval base. Are you getting the gist of how this propaganda works? They put a school in a naval base so that when the naval base is attacked, the Islamist propagandists can run out and say, Israel attacked a girls' school, killed 165. And it's really frustrating asking Grok about this earlier this morning. He says, oh, the reports are confirmed. Yeah, 165 girls killed in this strike against Iran. But you should be happy to learn that upon further investigation, I learned there is one report coming from Iranian sources claiming this death toll. Now, maybe it's accurate. I don't trust the source. You shouldn't trust the source either. But again, this is the fog of war. All of this information will have an agenda. Kaya's clan writes on X, a failed missile launch in Iran caused the projectile to fall on a school. Images capture the moment it failed, fell back to the ground and struck. The Iranians, just like the Palestinians in Gaza at the beginning of the war, immediately claimed it was a missile fired by the United States or Israel. I wish this was just going to be over. Weekend operation. We took out the leadership. Now we're going to hand it off to the Shah. Benevolent individuals. And everything's going to be okay. We're going to get out with less than a dozen soldiers killed. And a massive benefit to the world. There's still hope. There's still hope for that. But I'm not going to hold my breath. There's a lot of propaganda involved in this operation. And some displays of military might. I was looking at, look at these F-35s. Look at this Space Force in action. No, they're all fake videos. All fake American military pumping videos. So what are your feelings on this? What are your feelings on the new war in Iran from the president that wasn't going to start any new wars, was going to end wars, was going to create peace? Well, here's the perspective from an Iranian. Share the screen so you can follow along with me here. Ida Chiran writes on X, attention please. I know everyone is glued to the headlines about Iran right now. and long reads feel impossible amid the chaos, but please bookmark this, share it, and give it 8 to 10 minutes when you can. This piece contains information most Westerners have never heard, but it is essential for understanding what is really happening, why things escalated to this point, and why certain decisions were not just necessary, but brave and inevitable. After reading, you will understand why war and regime change were the only realistic path forward, and why it was the courageous choice. Why the regime refuses cooperation and behaves so recklessly and self-destructively. Why it deliberately targets civilian areas in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. The real root of the regime's deep, obsessive hatred toward America. Why the danger is far greater than most people realize. This isn't opinion, it's the hidden logic behind the regime's actions, drawn from its own ideology, history, and behavior. 9/11 exposed Sunni extremism, but Shia remains the blind spot. Eternal hostility, pragmatism versus unyielding resistance, the eternal martyrdom narrative. I mean, it's obvious, okay? It's obvious, in my opinion, that Islam is seeking to take over the world. And I believe the center of this effort is in Iran. You know, Muslims have on average like 6 kids. You know how many kids Westerners have? Like less than 2. This is the average. Do we want this? Peaceful, legal, or otherwise? Do we want this? Do we want Muslims moving into our neighborhoods and creating generation after generation of Islam following citizens that will vote to elect other Islamists to design their governments and influence their politics? This is exactly what I mean when I talk about the tactics that our enemies have used to overthrow our governments and destroy our way of life through legal means. They've studied our documents, they've discovered the loopholes, and they're now using them to destroy us. Do we want to allow this to continue? Is this the future that you want for your children? Does this war in Iran prevent that in any way? I think maybe it's a start. I think doing something is better than doing nothing. Because, in my opinion, we are staring down the barrel of an Islamic takeover of the entire world. And that is what they want. And Iran was the number one funder of these efforts and this behavior. I'm not ready to pass judgment on this operation, but I am pessimistic. And I'm really worried that this is the indication that our celebrated leader, Donald Trump, is a victim. Or maybe that's not the right word. He's a component now of the military industrial complex and the globalist banking cartel that's attached to it. Of course, now we have the Russian response to worry about. Putin says the action is illegal and detestable. Of course, all of our enemies will make similar statements and will seek to become involved, no doubt, should the conflict persist. They're all going to look for their moment to attract attention, to make moves that will benefit themselves. And the mainstream propaganda will have nothing, of course, to say about it. I should end now, but I got a fun conspiracy to show you. This is, I believe, pushed out by some of what I like to call the Q people. But it's a conspiracy. It's fun, despite how unbelievable. Mr. Poole writes on X. Let me quickly share it for you, even though none of this crap happens quickly. At Mr. Poole _QQ writes on X. It started, and it's not about Iran. February 28th, 26, 8 a.m. Trump stood at the podium and said 7 words that changed the world. The United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Within 60 minutes, Iranian army commander assassinated U.S. 5th Fleet HQ in Bahrain under missile attack. However, I heard that was evacuated. Explosions across Tehran, Isfahan, and Bushehr. Iranian civilians dancing in the streets, celebrating. This has been widely reported. The media wants you to think this is about nuclear weapons. It's not. It's about what's underneath Iran, the real target. In 2017, NSA intercepted communications between 3 CIA black sites operating in Iran since 2003. Not fighting Iran, working with the Iranian regime. These sites housed $2.3 billion in deep state black budget funds laundered through Iranian banks. A server farm containing backup copies of every, wait for it, Epstein blackmail tape. Okay. Classified bioweapon research moved from Wuhan to Tehran in October 2019, 2 months before COVID. Obama sent Iran $150 billion and pallets of cash in 2016. The media said it was a nuclear deal. It was payment for silence, for storage, for protection. All right. I got to take a little break here. I will be right back. Okay, please forgive me. Please forgive me. Apparently, an obvious reason why that happened, at least in my opinion. Let's pick up something about 2016. I guess I should have stopped when I supposed that I should stop. Now we got this. We got this. These sites housed, we went through that. 2.3 billion in deep state black budget funds. The blackmail, the Epstein blackmail tape. Classified bioweapon research moved from Wuhan to Tehran in October 2019, 2 months before COVID. There's also conspiracy theories floating out around there now that Epstein somehow was involved with the COVID pandemic or had foreknowledge. Obama sent Iran 150 billion and pallets of cash in 2016. The media said it was a nuclear deal. It was payment for silence, for storage, for protection. Iran wasn't America's enemy. Iran was the deep state's vault. Why now? 72 hours ago, Bondi's team confirmed the original Epstein tapes are not in the United States. They were moved in 2019, split between 3 locations. A bunker in the Swiss Alps, raided by Interpol on Valentine's Day. A server farm in Tel Aviv, seized by Israeli military intelligence February 21st, in an underground facility 40 kilometers south of Tehran. 2 down, 1 to go. Trump didn't invade Iran to stop a nuclear program. Trump invaded Iran to get the last copy of the tapes. The tapes that name every president since Clinton, every billionaire, every Hollywood icon, every royal. The final phase. The Epstein files were the names. The client list was the customers. The tapes are the proof. This is the last piece, the kill shot. They started wars to hide these tapes. They killed witnesses. They burned labs. They spent trillions keeping this buried. And one man just sent the U.S. military to dig it up. The Iranian people are celebrating because they know the regime that enslaved them was never Iranian. It was the deep state's puppet. The cleanup is global. The storm is here. Nothing can stop what is coming. So just trust. I don't know. I don't want to dog all over this conspiracy theory because I love conspiracy theories. But this is an example of the war cheerleading that we're going to see over the next several, hopefully no longer than weeks. And it's fun to talk about conspiracy theories. But I mean, it may be about something different. But I don't think it's about the Epstein files. What do you think is the most likely? I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments. Is it about global jihad? Is it about oil? Is it about central banking? Is it about Wesley Clark's 7 countries? Is it about handicapping our enemies' access to oil? I think that may be the most likely. Because this was one of the reasons for the sanctions. One of Iran's first actions after the attacks was shut down the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know how they're going to enforce that. But it sure seems like it's about oil and global trade. And whatever else you hear that makes you feel warm and cozy inside about what's happening in the Middle East right now is likely propaganda designed to make you behave in a certain way so that you're more predictable for the people that need to predict what you're going to do next. But this is not the end. So you must join me next week, Sunday at 11 a.m., where we can discuss this further. We will dig in to the latest revelations. And hopefully we'll be able to distinguish fact from fiction. So please, before you go, give me a follow. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Head over to Rumble and follow my channel there. I am at earthvox on X. I invite you to follow me on X. You may send me a DM. I would love to hear from you. Get involved. I need help in plenty of areas. But thank you so much for just being here, for listening to the show, for supporting me in this effort. Please just do whatever you can, whatever comes to mind that you think might help me out. You can send me an email, therealearthvox@protonmail.com, and leave me a voicemail at 701-787-1121. I'll be back.